The top opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. I'm your host, Ira Wolf, and I'm with my co-host, Keith Campagna, and our sponsors today are JobVite and Success Performance Solutions. Our guest this week is Karen Young from HR Resolutions. Karen and I go back a few years. We met maybe 10, maybe 15 years ago. We'll have to kind of recoup that through a mutual friend, and we've been doing some work together ever since. We're going to be hitting on a bunch of topics, but giving some special attention to that dreaded job description. So before we get to Karen, Keith, how you doing today? What's cooking? I know it's pretty cold out there.
Yeah, we're definitely getting swamped with the cold weather here.
The polar vortex, huh? The polar vortex. You should have done your California this week.
I know it. I know it. I have a colleague of mine who went out to California, and I believe she was whistling as her kitchen door closed. She was done. She's out.
Yeah. So we didn't get a whole lot of time last week, but I know you've been busy since you're back. What's some of the new exciting things going on, or what you learned out at your meeting last week?
Yeah, no, I mean, the reality is that JobVite, I'm really happy to say, is really poised to have an even better 2019. We finished the year best ever in the history of the organization in terms of net new clients as well as increase in revenue.
It must be from all the business they're getting from the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show, right?
It's a home run. Give you and me a microphone, and then the revenue just comes in on the other side. It's been working. There's a couple things going on here. Last week I did my life work integration webinar.
That's right. Yep.
That went through the Bank 7 organization. And it was pretty cool. It was, it's really hard going from being on a stage to talking to my computer without having any kind of resonance.
It's very hard with that feedback and body language and observation's important.
Yep. But it was a success. Things right now, the projects, it seems like everybody is full swing back to work. So a lot of those projects that took the holidays off are now kicking up. So it's pretty exciting to see, as it turns out, everyone is still trying to figure out how to build their talent pipeline and the levels of frustration. And I would even use the word, the term maybe desperation is becoming more and more obvious to more and more people that I speak with. It's pretty nuts out there. What have you been up to?
Well, I've just been busy. The last 2 months I haven't traveled. It starts again next week. Going to be in Atlanta, Leadership Atlanta, closing keynote at their Innovation Summit. And thanks to one of our guests and an introduction you made to the show and to me, which is Robbie Gulry from Engage Talent. So he reached out and going to be down there and just got invited to speak. I was already doing the SHRM Talent and SHRM National, and he got invited to do SHRM Northeast PA the day after. Got invited somewhere the day before. So that's in April. That'll be a busy week. We'll have to work out the logistics for the show again, as usual. But no, it'll be busy doing Lehigh Valley, SHRM, talking about predictive analytics in just a few weeks, beginning of March. So I think you got that one on your calendar.
Yep.
Yeah, good. I've just been because I didn't have to travel. I've been doing a lot of fix up of the website. We changed marketing companies and just trying to get things in order. But one of the things I've been thinking of, and we just mentioned a couple of the guests. I mean, we mentioned Robbie just 2 weeks ago. We had Kevin Grossman from the Talent Board, and we got excited to the 2018 Talent Board report should be out pretty soon.
Yep.
I think he said the end of the month, so that'll be good to see what comes out of there. Next week, we got David Searns from Haley Marketing. does a lot of work with a really progressive group. They do a lot of work with staffing associations, staffing firms. So we talk about that. Coming up, we've got, following that, we got Venkat, I hope I say his last name, Venkat Janaparty from Jobiac. And they got a really great solution to the Google for Jobs, problem that companies are having, not getting posted. And I just did an audit this week, actually all weekend. I spent a ton of time. It was a regional healthcare group, and they're having trouble finding people. And did the audit, went through their application. Can't wait to talk to Karen about some of this stuff. And they had 48 required fields on their job application. Actually, on 48 to 50. I sort of lost count. But a lot of those required questions, the logic just wasn't there, because it would say, it's like if you ask a question, do you have yes or no? And then it says, well, if yes, please answer this question. Well, you can't make that question required. Is what if somebody wanted to answer no, or the opposite. And a lot of these positions were for, associates. So you're right. I mean, it's getting a lot tougher out there, as we've talked about so often on the show. It's bad, finding good talent's tough enough, but companies make it so much harder.
They do. They don't. It's always interesting to learn from, once I get introduced to new companies and we get under the cover, to just learn what has been, let's just say, ignored, right? Because you look at people who you talk to, and I'm sure Karen could certainly support this when she comes on, but they wonder why they're not getting any results, but they haven't been able to get out of their daily activities long enough to actually fix some of the elements that's going on. And now they're sitting there scratching their heads, wondering how fast can they get the technology implemented. And they're just blown away with the amount of information that they could be getting as compared to what they have.
Yeah, we lined up another guest. I talked to him this morning, Jeff Gottheld. He has a book called Sense and Purpose, but he came from technology, software development. He actually lives over in Barcelona now, so I was talking to him this morning. But he's a big proponent on Agile HR. Agile is the new buzz of a sense, but I think just having that agility. But he was talking about. I'm just going to read this because I pulled this from one of his articles. The path to success these days is short cycles, regular reflection, and course correction based on evidence collected during whatever process you're using. HR regularly works in annual or at best quarterly cycles. Yep. And beyond that, the data, I mean, HR has so much data. I'll be talking about this at that Lehigh Valley presentation in just a few weeks. But it's nobody's really using it for predictive analytics. People are basically using a lot of the data for reporting. I do, like you, I do see some of that changing, but it's sort of like, candidates and employers are ships passing in the nights as we go there. Yep. Yeah. So things are busy, but Jeff's going to be on hopefully by the end of February or so. So, but what I started to say, sort of took a big detour around there. We've really met a lot of good people, and we're having an opportunity to meet a lot of good people and more topics. Had an interview this morning with Cornerstone for an upcoming article on learning. Where learning's going, micro learning, augmented reality, virtual reality. So hopefully we'll be able to get somebody on there to talk about what the future of learning is going to be. We had Danny Inney, who we just put up. I just got his blog, his podcast and blog put up, and talked to him, email exchange this morning. And yesterday I just got we talked about is college degree. Our college degree is really a good hiring criteria anymore, and how education's changing. And last night, pretty late at night, I got a tweet. There was some publication that said that a lot of colleges are extending their deadline dates for admissions because they're not getting enough submissions, especially at the higher priced private schools.
Yep. And that's something that I know just from my own conversations with regards to the recruitment world. The higher education industry is looking at a massive enrollment issue these next couple of years based off of the idea that way back in 2008 through 2010, nobody really wanted to start a family. So you have a gap of not only are the education universities and colleges having to deal with the idea that people aren't sure about their return on investment, but they're actually having a similar challenge to the modern day business recruitment world, and that is that there aren't enough people to satisfy their budgets.
I mean, you're in the Gen X, Generation X, that half as many, the population's about half the size of baby boomers and half the size of millennials. So this next generation may be a bit smaller. So
I'm gonna have to get Michael over at Rutgers. I'm going to be, I think I mentioned this to you last time, I'm going to be on a panel in March down at the Rutgers University. And I'm going to have to get Michael on the podcast so we could talk about what the universities are thinking about.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be a great follow-up. So, But let's get back on track here. Hey, just want to let everybody know you're listening to the Geek Skeezers and Googlization show. We are live on W4CY.com. I guess you don't need that if you're already listening, but for the future. If you got a question about the future of work, recruitment, hiring, give us a call. Love to hear from you. To ask, we're going to bring on Karen in just a minute. If you have some HR questions, especially about job descriptions or anything related to HR, give us a call. We'll do our best to get you a good answer or get you to the right place. You can call 561-623-9429. That's 561-623-9429. So let's get back to Karen. Karen has a company called HR Resolutions. She's been in HR for a while. We'll get a little bit more history on that. She works with quite a few companies, mostly small, medium-sized businesses, but I know there's a few large ones there. Her book has got a great title, Stop Knocking on My Door, Drama-Free HR to Help Grow Your Business. So we're going to talk about how to have get drama-free. And she also talks about, I like this phrase, and it's going to be one of the first questions. It's a primer for the accidental HR manager. So we're going to find out what an accidental HR manager is.
I think I have a theory about that.
Yeah. She's actually happily married to Barry. I've met Barry, super nice guy for almost half a quarter century, we'll say. And she's an avid mother of greyhounds, a parent of some racing greyhounds. Love of her life. So, hey, welcome, Karen.
Hey, thanks. Good afternoon, everybody.
So good to have you.
Accidental HR person.
Yeah. So, well, I know there's two of us in here. That we're in this space. Mine was certainly accidental that I got in this space, and I know Keith as well.
Right.
So what is the
Keith,
accidental?
You said you thought you had.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Keith said he thought he had an idea. Keith, what do you think an accidental HR person is?
Well, shooting from the hip here, my experience, and I've been, just so you know, Karen, I've been
selling. That's probably it, shooting from the hip.
Right. Well, it's this idea that I hesitate to say these terms, but it seems to me anymore that most people in HR got there by getting a admin type role within the HR department, and then just through maybe evolution of need versus maybe being the one person who picked the shortest straw, their HR responsibilities grew without them having any true HR strategic training or awareness. Whereas you have people come in with financial training to go into finance, operational training that go into operations. HR seems to be that thing where you can that component of modern day business where you could actually get promoted throughout the ranks, up the ranks, without having too much more intent of being in HR. You're just kind of the person there. How'd I do?
You are spot on for one side of it, and the other side of it in the smaller companies, in a physician's office or in a smaller company where the office manager or the controller or the doctor ends up because there's nobody else around to handle all of that confidential stuff. I love it when it goes to the controllers because they handle the payroll and all that other private stuff, so they might as well get HR. Mm-hmm. Well, finance people generally aren't people. They like numbers, and that's great because that's what they're good at. It's the accidental HR person that just, by golly, they are stuck with it. Hey. Or, as Keith said, they've grown up through the company, not necessarily a formal education or formal training or formal certification in HR. So they kind of know what they're doing, but Dr. Google might help them out a lot of times instead of their own knowledge and abilities. So that's the accidental HR person.
Yeah, so, I guess, and I just overlooked it, but I know there's a lot of schools that now have HR degrees. In fact, when I was down when I was living in Maryland for a few years, I actually taught at Salisbury University and started. I started a program. I mean, we had it was strategic staffing. I didn't start the program, but they had the program. But I started a strategic. It was called strategic staffing. That was the course. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But that's pretty recent. Am I right? I mean, you've been in this industry a lot longer than I have. So.
Back in the dark days, when I graduated from undergraduate, there was no such thing as even a personnel major. My undergraduate was in business administration and psychology.
And that seemed, as the psychology seemed to be the space that maybe a lot of HR people in, but not a lot of business. Yes. I mean, it was sort of the opposite. If you were interested, if you had math and science, you went to business, and if you just liked people and you sort of had a social science degree, you either went into social work or HR.
Mm-hmm. Oh
yeah. Yeah, or if you liked people. If you liked, you liked working with people, you went to HR, and then you found out yourself you were buried in payroll and benefits and conflict resolution, right?
And found out you didn't like people. Oh my gosh!
Did you have a question?
I was going to say a lot has changed in the last couple of years, where we're really seeing the need for a strategic. HR partner. I've come across some reading books now, and the idea was promoted maybe 10 years ago, where that says HR needs to sit next to the CEO. It seems like now the very now I'll call them progressive companies. But the initial experiment of bringing HR to the executive suite didn't really do that well. It feels like there was an awful lot of minutia that everyone got stuck in. But now it seems like because of this talent marketplace supply and demand challenge, Karen, everybody is trying to figure out how to get HR more, I guess, to the front of the front office. Does that make sense?
It does. And I still remember when I was a rookie in my profession, looking at the vice president of operations and saying, I want to go out in the warehouse and I want to learn how to load a truck. And he looked at me like I had two heads. He said, why in the world would you want to do that? And I said, if I'm going to be recruiting people for you, I need to understand what they do. I need to have a better understanding. And I learned by touching and feeling and doing. So I needed to really grasp, and even within the profession of HR, we're seeing a distinct separation now between strategic and tactical. I still love the tactical stuff, but I can't be strategic if I don't understand the business of my client. I have to understand what brings in the revenue. I have to get that. And if there are any budding HR professionals listening to us today, my encouragement to them is learn the business, understand a P&L statement, understand what drives the revenue of the company and what impacts the revenue of the company so that you can best feel the pain of your people, so that you can understand when I'm not properly staffed, this is the ripple effect to our customers or to our stakeholders. We have to understand that to become better recruiters, better HR professionals, better service people for our employees who are our customers.
So you talk a lot about, well, it's actually the subtitle of your book, the drama-free HR. You know, I mean, that's sort of an ambitious goal, I guess, to have HR drama-free.
Oh, we just absorb the drama. I want you to run your business. I'll take over the drama.
Yeah. So how do you get there? I mean, what are some of the steps? And maybe the job description that we're going to talk about shortly. We're going to take a break in a minute or so. But
okay.
How do we get? I mean, what are some of the steps somebody has to take to get that drama-free HR?
I'm going to tell you, really, if you do nothing else, I want you to fall back on the job description for a lot of reasons, but if for nothing else, for the clarity that it gives everybody. Drama results when there is a difference of opinion or a clash of understanding or expectations not being met. That's what causes drama. So if we can address that before it even happens, then if it starts to bubble up, we have something to fall back on and say, hey, remember when we did this, we agreed on XYZ. So help me understand why XYZ is a problem now. So we can actually cut off the drama before it becomes out of hand.
Perfect. And that leads up to a great segue. So we're going to take a quick break, though. You're listening to the Geek Skeezers and Googlization Show with our guest, Karen Young. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the job descriptions, because that seems to be at the core of having a drama-free HR. We're talking about HR in the workplace, the future of HR, future of work. We're going to take a short break, hear from our sponsors, JobVite and Success Performance Solutions. Stay right where you are. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Behind everything you're searching for is something you're actually looking for. When you search with the Real Yellow Pages, you get more than a contractor. You get a whole new curb appeal. It's not just getting directions to a dry cleaner with YP.com. It's rescuing an old favorite from the back of the closet. And it's more than finding a locksmith with YP.com on your mobile. It's getting to sleep in your own bed. Whatever it might be, there are more ways to search and more ways to find exactly what you're looking for with the Real Yellow Pages, YP.com, and YP.com on your mobile, only from AT&T.
What's up, everyone? This is Keith from the Geek Skeezers and Googlization Show, powered by JobVite. JobVite knows career paths are made by people, not by open job requisitions. JobVite's platform ties recruitment marketing directly to applicant tracking and onboarding, creating continuous candidate engagement that effectively connects recruiters with qualified passive candidates. Used by over 50,000 recruiters placing over 1 million jobs, JobVite's platform impacts every company in every industry. Check us out at jobvite.com.
Listen carefully. Up to 9 out of 10 job candidates visiting your company career page leave before completing an application. You heard that right. 90% of candidates who want to apply for a job at your company don't. That's just plain crazy, especially in today's tight labor market. Candidate experience matters. Stop turning candidates away. Let Success Performance Solutions help. Call us at 800-803-4303 or register at successperformancesolutions.com/W4CY. Schedule a no-obligation consultation and get special access to insider tips to recruit faster and hire smarter.
Hey, welcome back to the Geek Skeezers and Googlization Show. I'm your host, Ira Wolf, here with Keith today, Keith Campagna, my co-host, and our very special guest, Karen Young from HR Resolutions. Hey, when we left off, we were going to lead into the job description, but we got onto a little topic during our quick break here about how HR really needs to become, I guess, more business savvy. Is that
absolutely?
At a minimum? So and in order to get to I mean, I don't know how long. I mean, I've had this business 24 years. I never intended to be in the HR space, but for the last almost 20, I have been, I guess. But ever since then, ever since I've been following HR, they've been trying to get the strategic seat at the table, and yet all of us agreed. We hear from people, a lot of the people that we deal with, the HR professionals. They're good people. They're nice people. They work hard. But it's like, I'm just not good at math. I'm just not good with numbers. and yet, it's the only function within companies that you can't get away with it, but they try to.
Right. Or I want to implement this new applicant tracking system, but my boss says no. Well, did you help them understand how much time, effort, energy, and money you will save by implementing that?
But he says that's what he's paying you for. That's
right.
If I have an applicant tracking system, then I probably don't need you. Yeah, no, not quite.
Oh, you still
or whatever
need me.
It is. Yeah.
Somebody has to talk to the candidate.
Yeah. Well, we can spend all day on that. We'll talk. Hopefully, we'll have a little time at the end to get to the future of that. But we talked about the backbone. I mean, I asked you the question: how do we have drama-free HR? Right. And you said, the job description, and that honestly, to me, would have been the farthest thing from the first response. So tell us about it. Why is the job description so I will say so dreaded? And I've used that term before. I mean, people, can you write me a job description, stick it in the folder, put it on a hard drive, and the only time it's ever seen is when you're going to fire somebody or when we have to post the job.
Right. Well, and you did call it the dreaded job description, but in my book I refer to it as actually the hub of the wheel, the job description, and then we've got all these spokes coming off of the job description. So if you didn't have a hub, the whole wheel would collapse in on itself. But with this hub, we've got the spoke of recruiting and selection. Well, how do we recruit and select if we don't know what we're looking for, if we don't know what skills they need to have, if we don't know what tasks they're going to do? Onboarding, expectations. One of the biggest reasons people leave jobs is because they unmet expectations. Well, if we've got that job description to talk about in the recruiting, in the onboarding process, in the coaching and mentoring phase of the relationship with the employees, it can be used for discipline. A big area it can and should be used is in medical issues or workers' compensation issues by demonstrating this is what the individual needs to be able to do. I have to have them do, and a lot of people have heard the phrase essential functions. So those are the things that's why the position exists. There might be a lot of other tasks that go along with the position, but the position exists for these essential functions. And as an employer, that's what we need so that we can demonstrate, well, this person can come back to work, or they can't come back to work. I can't survive if these essential functions aren't done. So it literally serves as the hub of the wheel. And when we're talking about drama-free, as we went into the commercial, I was talking about if we have crystal clear expectations between the employee or the candidate or the recruit and the employer, when things start to go astray, we have something that we can quickly turn back to and say, hey, Ira, do you remember when we developed and talked about your responsibilities when you came on board? I want to revisit that conversation and perhaps refresh, and we can get back on track with our mutual expectations of each other. So it really does help mitigate and reduce the drama. Yeah, drama is going to flare. Anytime you put two people together, there are going to be differences of opinion. But when we have this document in place that we can refer to, that helps us work through it. And then my favorite bullet point on a job description is all other duties as assigned, so that no one can ever say, but that's not in my job description, because yes, it is. It's right there on that point.
Right.
So Karen, I mean, and I used to do a workshop on this of helping people, and I've never said I've written the job description, but helping identify the core part of that. You said if you could identify the skills that what are the essential skills, what are the essential requirements that people have, and if you just go look at job listings, they're horrible. I mean, it's like this laundry list, and I see this all the time, and I'll say, well, what do you people call me, the core part of my business is testing. So the first question I have is, what do you want to learn from the test? And they'll come back and there'll be this laundry list, motivation, energy, persistent, conscientious, honest. And there's this laundry list of that they've identified as essential. And maybe they are. Some of them are difficult to manage. Some of them are just crazy. It's like everybody got together and said, let's make let's make a grocery shopping. Let's make a list of anything you can possibly think of for the Super Bowl party, and bring it. Whatever you bring is fine, just as long as we have a list. And that's so. How do you what's your process? I mean, how do you get companies to focus on the skills? And I know job analysis is out there. But, I mean, if companies have to do that for every job, it just doesn't get done.
I actually try to simplify it for them by I limit the list of competencies or soft skills that I provide them. And then I try to get them to, there are two different types, as I know you both know. There are the company value type, where everybody that comes to play at the company has to demonstrate. One of ours is HR is fun. Everybody in our company, no matter the position, has to get that, or they won't be successful. So I try to narrow it to 3 of those company-wide skills, and then 3 per job skills. And if you look at the jobs within, I always use us as an example. From a strategic standpoint, I need to look at the big picture. But our safety guy needs to look at the details. I can look at the details, but I go absolutely nuts. It just I get very bored with it, and it's time to move on to the next squirrel that has come along. And he goes crazy having to look at just the big picture. So that's kind of how I try to explain the difference between the company skills and then the per job skills. And I limit that also to 3. So at the maximum, I'm looking at maybe 6 soft skills or competencies on a job description. And I found that really helps people to narrow it down that way.
Yeah, and you and I are on the same page. I mean, I've used a couple different competency models, Lominger, which I still think is one of the best ones. We used one from Janus. I use the assess often, and I like the assess because it's pretty concise. It's down to 38. And then you have to, so part of it is, even given somebody 38 competencies, I would say that the average, when I say pick the ones that you think are most important, and I get 25, and then it's a process of narrowing that down to the next level. Or we have, for some of the associate positions, we have our system. We actually have 130 validated scales of traits and personality traits and skills, math skill. So people want math skills and attention to detail and conscientious. And fortunately, the system has a maximum of 10. So. Okay. Then we get into the factor of it's not very friendly because that takes somebody half hour, 45 minutes to complete, So the whole process now is, helping companies, which ties back into your job description. We're sort of, we're all over the board. So if you can narrow it down to 3 to 6, then you can have a pretty concise pre-employment assessment or screening questions, even if it's not a formal assessment, screening questions to focus on to qualify or disqualify people.
Right. And when it comes to the essential functions, one of the things that I use with employers is, think of it like you're writing a job description. You're not writing the procedure manual. If you say, push the first button on the phone when it lights up, that's a procedure manual. But if I say, respond to incoming calls, that's completely different. That's what you're looking for with the essential functions, kind of these broad paintbrush strokes of the responsibilities. Why does the job exist? The job doesn't exist to push the first button when it lights up. The job exists to answer the phone, if that makes any sense at all.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
And then, and then the last important piece are what they call the physical and work environment. So if you're going to have job descriptions, in order to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act as amended, you have to have these physical and work environment statements. And a lot of people say, oh my gosh, they're so difficult. They're really not. If you have inside and outside positions, or if you have office positions and manufacturing positions, you're pretty much going to have only two different work and physical environments. And you just write a paragraph or two that describes what they'll be exposed to in the normal working day. Mine is, sitting here looking out the window at the whiteout because the snow's blowing so hard, but sitting at a desk for an 8-hour period of time. That's an example of the things they're looking at for that. And that's so that we can reinforce and back up those essential functions that we've selected.
So, hey, we're going to take another quick break here. You're listening to the Geeks, Geezers, and Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. We're here with Karen Young, HR Resolutions. We're talking about the job descriptions. And when we come back, I'm going to ask Karen how, what's the first step that a company can do? How long does it take to do these? We got a couple other things I want to talk about the future of work as well. So stay tuned. We will be right back with Ira, Keith, and Karen.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, you can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to YP.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
What's up, everyone? This is Keith from the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show, powered by JobVite. JobVite knows career paths are made by people, not by open job requisitions. JobVite's platform ties recruitment marketing directly to applicant tracking and onboarding, creating continuous candidate engagement that effectively connects recruiters with qualified passive candidates. Used by over 50,000 recruiters placing over 1 million jobs, JobVite's platform impacts every company in every industry. Check us out at jobvite.com.
Listen carefully. Up to 9 out of 10 job candidates visiting your company career page leave before completing an application. You heard that right. 90% of candidates who want to apply for a job at your company don't. That's just plain crazy, especially in today's tight labor market. Candidate experience matters. Stop turning candidates away. Let Success Performance Solutions help. Call us at 800-803-4303 or register at successperformancesolutions.com/W4CY. Schedule a no-obligation consultation and get special access to insider tips to recruit faster and hire smarter.
Hey, welcome back to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. I'm your host, Ira Wolf, and I'm with Keith Campagna, my co-host, and our guest, Karen Young from HR Resolutions. When we left off, we were talking about the job description. Karen gave us an overview of why that it's the hub of the business, really. I mean, it's a hub of HR, and it leads to so many things. So, but Karen, I got a question. I mean, because I've been doing this for a while too, and we have a very similar approach. Somebody says, we were talking at the break that you work with a lot of distributors, manufacturers, professional services. They may have 15, 20, 50 jobs. How, what's the process? I mean, I can hear that kind of collective sigh, of somebody says, oh, we got to spend all this time doing job descriptions. How do you make it work? I mean, how do you do it concise?
It's so much easier than people think. I like to get the employees involved in it for two reasons. Number one, nobody knows the job better than the employee. And then number two, it makes them feel of value to the company and kind of engaged in the process. So it is important to get their input and then get the supervisors involved as well. Easy process is you have each of them sit down separately and just write out a list. Here's what I do. This is what I do every day or every week. And these are the things that I do once in a while. And then the employee and the supervisor take their list and they combine it. And I'll bet you 95% is going to be a match. And then there will be some issues that, oh, I didn't know you did that. Why do you do that? Susie should be doing that. So we move that over to Susie and make Harry more efficient in the process and get Susie more involved and, more hours. So she's earning her 40 hours now instead of making work. It can be that simple.
So have you ever
and just doing it done?
Yeah. So have you ever gotten customers involved?
Oh, absolutely.
In that process, which is interesting. I remember doing that for a customer service. I can't remember the position, but I think it was customer service or call center or something like that, and said, why don't you involve customers in this process to see what they think this person's supposed to do? Absolutely.
And particularly when it comes to the softer skills or those competencies, having the customer say, this is what when I call HR resolutions, this is what I expect. This is how I expect to be treated. It doesn't matter who I speak to. Anybody that answers the phone, this is my expectation. So it can help with that aspect as well.
I don't know where I pulled this from this morning. It might have been from Jeff Gottheld, one of his articles, or somewhere else. But I guess it was him. And he said he went into one of the companies, and their approach was, when they realized things were out of sync, and again, this ties in job descriptions with strategy and growth, they re-interviewed every employee in the company, and they had 3,500 employees. They re-interviewed, and they said, how many would you rehire? That was the first question, okay? The second was that they found that 40% of the people that were on the payroll either moved to new jobs because they were a better fit, just as you were saying. Oh, I didn't realize you did this, and this is really a different job than what we thought it was. But a lot of people left because they really didn't fit. They were just picking up a paycheck. This whole idea of turning, rather than just, hey, it's an HR task, we need to rewrite our job descriptions, becomes a strategic move. It becomes a workforce development process of how do we manage everybody.
And I don't want people to get hung up on titles either, particularly in smaller companies when we've all got so many hats to wear. I want you hung up on competencies. If you've got somebody that brings value to your company, but they may not be good at attaching purchase orders to invoices, well, find somebody that can do that, and then let this person answer the phones and be involved with customers. We don't have to get hung up on the title when it comes to doing it. We want hung up on who's moving our company forward.
And Karen, speaking of moving the company forward, since the theme here is the future of work, and we know that the C-level personnel inside of every organization is doing their best to look around the corner, and it's hard for any one manager internally to get someone's attention at a C-level anymore. What would you say are some good ideas for that HR leader who's trying to get the message in front of their CEO or their CFO? What makes the biggest impact so that they can start, maybe for those listening to the podcast today, they could start dotting their I's and crossing their T's to do so?
And Keith, that's a great question. One of the first things, and I do a presentation on being heard at the top, and one of the first things we need to realize is, how does that C-suite person, what's their communication style? And I'll use a CFO because they're just the simplest one, because we automatically say, oh, they're a numbers person. So they are generally driven by data. They're worried about the data of the company. They're worried about the numbers. So as an HR person I'm a very people person, But that doesn't matter, because not that the CFO doesn't care about people, because he or she does. What they care about is numbers. So if I want to get something through, or if I want to get that individual's attention, I have to talk to them in the way they hear. They are hearing and looking at numbers. So I need to go prepared with statistics and data. I want to implement this new program. The testing period will be for 3 months. The initial cost will be X. I will take that out of this portion of my budget, which can be replaced by that. And really taking a look at numbers crunching. They will look at you. They will be so proud of you because they may have heard you for the first time when you go to them in that manner, and they'll be much more likely to follow through with and for you. Now, they might ask you some data questions, and there's no harm in saying, you know what, Keith, I don't know that right now. I will get that answer for you.
Right. But really having that concept of speaking on their terms, whether that be from finance or even from the CEO's position. How do we grow the company, right? Yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
So, Karen, I'm going to be the party pooper here because we've got about 4 minutes left. I told you this goes fast, and we covered a lot. But I want to make sure that anybody who has a question, who if they happen to be that accidental HR manager, or if they're seeking to have drama-free HR, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably the best way actually is email, and that is Karen, Karen, at hrresolutions.com.
Make sure you get the 2 R's in there, right?
I know. Don't forget the 2 R's. Yeah. And resolutions is plural.
Nice.
So, and I'm sorry, you said you were going to say your website or your phone? Was it?
The website is www.hrresolutions.com. There again, 2 R's in plural.
And your book, Stop Knocking on My Door, is up on Amazon, I believe.
It is on Amazon, yes.
Yeah, the universal place. That's great.
I know. Hey,
well, literally, it is everything. Soon banking. Your banking's going to be there, too. We'll talk. Yeah, well, it is. Amazon's going to be the one-stop shop for almost everything. Karen, you got like a minute. Final words of wisdom. What do you want to tell our listeners?
From an HR standpoint, I always like to tell people use common sense. And when it comes to the job description, sit down, talk to your people, have a conversation. What do you do? What do you like to do? Don't be afraid if they tell you that they like to do things that aren't in their job description. But your job, when looking to the future, is to find things within your organization that matches with what they like to do, because then you'll have a more engaged employee.
Super. Hey, and real quick, I always ask this question. You have like 30-second answer, first thing that comes to your mind. If we have you, we'd love to have you back. I mean, obviously, there's a whole lot of other things. If next year this time or in the last Wednesday in January, we're talking to you again, what's changed? What's the big headline for 2019?
We can't find people anywhere. I think the headline is we're finding people. Yeah.
We're good
finding
news
people now.
Good news for you and me, Keith.
Yes, indeed. Right.
We'll still
I don't want to pop any foods, but I already knew that one, Karen. Yeah. We'll have to give you more time to think about it.
Confirmation's good, though. Hey, appreciate it, Karen. Hey, you're listening to the Geek Excusers and Googleization show. We've been with our guest, Karen Young from HR Resolutions. Make sure you pick up a copy of her book on Amazon. Again, if you're one of those accidental HR managers, or if you've got a pretty sophisticated HR department, Karen's a good person to know and keep things going. Keith, any final thoughts, words?
Well, first and foremost, Karen, it's a pleasure talking with you, and congratulations on your success. I think within a year you're going to be coming up on your 15th anniversary, so kudos to you. I just think that this is something that is to go with the whole hub and wheel metaphor here. I think it's just another cog in the HR machine that's creating awareness, Ira, that HR needs to, get out of that old mindset and really dive in. Be fearless. Know that you can make mistakes and learn from them, but you have to get out of your comfort zone in HR. You have to get out from behind your desk. And as Karen said, get out on the floor. Get out into the real world and find out what people are thinking versus what the policies and procedures say in the guidelines.
Absolutely. And Karen, thanks for a great show, great conversation. You took this in a direction I didn't think it would go, but which is good. That's what we wanted. And
that's what I do.
Yeah, hopefully our listeners got a lot out of it. We'll be back next week with David Searns from the Haley Marketing Group. Have a lot of fun there. We're going to be talking about how recruitment marketing is kind of the top agenda for many companies in 2019. And the following week, we've got Venkat Jarapati from Jobiac, and we're going to be talking about Google for Jobs. You've been listening to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization show. We bring you topics and thought leaders discussing a future of work where the tired, the wired, and technology converge. Until next week, and every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, W4CY.com, and on iHeartRadio, iTunes, and a number of other podcast platforms. This is your host, Ira Wolf, co-host Keith Campagna. Don't let the shift hit your plans.